The second explanation of the oMindShow application. In the initial explanation, some have explained about the display on the screen and the functions and features of this application in outline. The following will explain in more detail the display on the screen because it is equipped with quite complete data. Look at the screen from top to bottom. As already explained, on the top left there are 3 labels on a white background and 3 buttons with different color backgrounds. The function has been described previously, but little for the third label. You can do a long click. This time in the oMindShow settings, auto sign in has been created, so that the function of this label when long clicked can be seen. See settings explanation for creating auto sign in. If you do a long click, the message cancel auto sign in will appear, meaning you will enter the menu using the user ID and password as shown in screen. If you do a long click again, there will be a message continue auto sign in, meaning you will enter the internal menu without entering the user ID and password. Below the 3 labels and buttons are the day and date labels, then the battery power label and the screen status label and tagline in running text. The function of this label has been explained in the initial explanation, but for the screen status label we will provide additional explanation. If you long click on the schedule body, a confirmation dialog will appear for the screen status to stay on, the label become keep screen on, but when you long click again then no dialog appears, but the screen status label will change directly to keep screen off. The screen status label becomes keep screen on to accommodate what you set in the settings for the data item. Set the buzzer sound. In this data item you can set start, end, both. If you set this data item other than no, then the bell will sound if the status keeps screen on, but if not then there is a possibility that what you set on this data item has no impact, the buzzer does not sound, because the Android OS will disable the screen automatically. Pay attention to the schedule chart. At the top there is a title and below it is the schedule body for each chart schedule per day. The red headings mean holidays while the blue ones are weekdays. In the title there is the name of the day and date. It can also be the name of the holiday if you set it on the Holiday Tagline tab menu. There can also be a special subject category, and there can also be working hours and end hours if you set in the settings. There are 18 special subject categories by the application, and you can still add this special category as many as 10 items in the settings. See the settings instructions in the application. If on the Schedule tabulation menu you select this particular subject category, the schedule graph will appear in the schedule title and schedule body section. If it is not a specific subject category, it will only appear in the schedule body. The schedule body consists of two parts, namely time available and activities. The time available area will always be green, and there is a time available, TA, written on it, and on the far right there are hours and minutes, and the background color is always white, while the activity area has different colors depending on the subject category. There is personal status, subject category, and hours and minutes of activity. It is on the far right. The background color for the activity can be beige, blue or pink. Beige for normal activities, blue for morning, and pink for special days such as birthdays, anniversaries, and so on. The overlapping activity areas will be magenta, and the not overlapping areas will follow the color according to the subject category. On holidays, the not working hours schedule graph area and the break time area will not appear in the schedule body, nor will the starting and ending hours of work appear in the schedule title, even if you set them in the settings, and will appear on weekdays. The non-working hours area will appear to the left or right of the schedule body in gray vertically, while the area flanked by the working hours area is white. The break area will be vertical bluish green. The red area fills the schedule body vertically, and the one moving to the right is the time runner. This time runner moves according to the hour-minute label change. Movement is so thin that it is not visible to the naked eye. This time runner informs you of past and approaching activity schedules. This time runner also determines the bell to sound when it touches the activity area at the beginning or end of the activity schedule. If you click on the schedule body, a dialog will appear showing the details of the schedule activity and the tabulation menu for which data is entered and the status of the data entry. The activity tabulation menu will depend on the personal status you choose. If students, teachers, or lecturers, then school activities appear. If employees, then office activities. If organization, then organizational activities, and so on. The tabulation menu mentioned here is the default tabulation menu, but you can change it by clicking on the spinner to the right of this data item, and a list of tabulation menus will appear that you can choose from. If it's personal, then personal activity will appear, and if this dialog comes from the schedule title or time available, then when you sign in, enter the personal activity tabulation menu that you will enter is the mood, outpouring of the heart. And if it's not from time available or schedule title, then what you will enter is the activity itself according to the schedule. On the data entry status, there are also galleries, photos, and videos besides yes and no. If yes, it means that the tabulation menu you selected will immediately display data entry. If not, the list of data displayed on the tabulation menu will be displayed. If the selected status input is gallery, photo, or video, then what is displayed first is the status you selected and then the list of data or data entry. If it is a photo or video, what will appear after the status is data entry, while if it is a gallery, what appears is a list of data on the tabulation menu. This may be very useful for professions who want visual recording first and then followed by recording narratives in text form, such as journalists, surveyors, and other field workers. The status label when clicked will clear the status parameters and subject category. Subject category labels when clicked will clear the subject category parameters. If you select a personal status by clicking the yellow button and then clicking the OK button, then the schedule activity of the personal status will be displayed. Likewise, when combined with the subject category parameters, the personal status with the subject category will be displayed. For personal status that starts with the word boss, the data list on the yellow button will contain the name of the boss for the personal status if you have filled it in the personal tabulation menu. So if there are several names with the personal status, they will all be displayed in the list on the yellow button. So the list on the yellow button will change from a list of personal and time available statuses to names of personal statuses that have a boss prefix. Apart from personal status with the prefix boss, the list is still personal status and time available. When you select a personal status starting with boss, the list has changed to names with the personal status. If any, otherwise the list will be empty. To return to the list of personal status and time available, then you click on the status label and the parameters will be empty, and the list that appears on the yellow button will be a list of personal status and time available. If the selected tabulation menu activity details dialog is personal activity and this dialog appears as a result of you clicking on the time available or schedule title, then you will enter your mood. For this, see the explanation of mood. If the dialog comes from a personal activity schedule, then you will enter personal activity date and not mood. This data entry also depends on the first data item that you fill in. If you click on the spinner and from the list you select personal, then the label will change to for interest. Otherwise it will change to submitted to, and the 3 data items under this record data item will change if the first data item selected is not personal and the label is for. The 3 data items will be colored red and their contents will be in accordance with the chosen independent profession. If it is a doctor, then the label will be related to the patient while the others will be related to the client, while if it is personal, then the 3 labels will remain black like the others and the contents of the label will be as default. These labels not only apply to personal status and to the first data item with personal choice, but also to other personal statuses such as students, teachers, lecturers, employees, members of the organization, and so on. You can fill in other data items which are optional. You just have to adjust the subject you enter and your considerations for the completeness of the data. Some of the data items can change between mood and activity data entry states, and some are the same. You can enter photo, video, audio and document data to complete your notes in text form. Input of photo and video data can be in detailed format or in album format for one data item. By default, if you click the small button in the middle with the letter C, the application will search for photos, videos, or audio in a detailed format, meaning per unit of the photo, video or audio. But if you long click on the small P button on the left of the display, a dialog will appear asking for the status of the format, album, or details. If you select an album, then if you long click on the small button labeled N, then all albums will appear. If the C button is clicked, then the album is in the activity folder, and if the P button is clicked, then the album is in the education/office folder. If you want to return to the detailed format, then do a long click on the P button earlier and select details. You can insert a document by first copying the document file to the personal activity folder on the gallery menu. Then you can use it in this data entry process by clicking the spinner on the document data item. You can record photos or videos during data entry by clicking the record button at the bottom of this display. At the time of recording a photo or video, you can also complete it with a photo or video description and add it to an album as explained in the initial explanation. You can then save the data you have created. If you want to send this data, because the data can indeed be shared, especially of course for activity data, you can select the data to be sent and click the View button and then click the Send button at the bottom of the data view. For mood data, it may not be for sharing, it is your consideration. At the top of the data items, there are those for personal use, but there are also those to be shared with other parties. For personal status, this is more specific, while for other personal statuses the destination of data sending will have the same personal status option as your personal status as a sender, or with the boss of this personal status specifically for tabulation menus related to activities. For other tabulation menus, personal statuses that can be recipients of data will be displayed. In the tabulation menu related to this activity for personal status, if the top data item is for personal interest, it can only be sent to personal status. If it is given to other parties, it can only be received by other parties as stated in the first item. Other parties that are not the same as those listed in the first item will be rejected. Other parties here are parties who have independent professions such as doctors, lawyers, notaries, and consultants. If your data contains photos and you send data, the application will ask whether the photo will be stamped with the user ID and smartphone ID. This stamping depends on you or the agreement between you as the sender and the recipient. If the dialogue that appears is negated, then the photo will not be stamped, but otherwise it will be stamped. The location and color of the stamp will be asked to you. If no stamp is given, a personal status list dialog will appear that will receive data and ask the language used by the recipient for this application. If confirmed, it will first ask for the location and color of the new stamp, then the previous information. You will see the process of forming the files to be sent, and all the files will be saved in the oMindShow for sending folder. You must send all files in this folder to the recipient so that the data in your application is exactly the same as that of the recipient, as long as there is no transmission interruption. Data transmission can use Bluetooth, email, or social media. If using social media, the recipient of this data must know if the received files are separated according to the type of file. For example, the folders for photos, videos, audio, and documents are separated from one another but one level below a certain folder. Then the path for this certain folder you must enter in the settings for the download folder data item. The receiving party can convert the received data by long-clicking on the View button for the appropriate tabulation menu. For this example, the tabulation menu is the Personal Activity Tabulation menu. For example, if you submit data for the Schedule Tabulation menu, then you must be on the Schedule Tabulation menu and then long-click the View button. If the received text file has a name that matches the tabulation menu where you long-click the View button, a dialog will appear where you can select the file, otherwise a message will appear informing you of the absence of the file. The result of this conversion will display the entire data as it is on the sender. If you want to change the password, then you click on the schedule body, then in the dialog that appears you select the tabulation menu data item from the list on the spinner, namely User Manager option, then you click the OK button, enter the user ID and password, then it will bring you to the User Manager tabulation menu. Select the user ID whose password will be changed, for example for oMindShow, and click the Edit button. The data will appear and you change the password data item and password confirmation data item. Between data password and password confirmation must be exactly the same, and then you save. The password you change should not be easily guessed by others, and you should keep it at home, not on your smartphone. Because the oMindShow user ID is the system administrator, the highest level authority, it can delete other user IDs. If you want to enter a holiday or tagline, you click on the schedule body, then in the dialog that appears you select the tab menu data item, and from the list on the holiday tagline spinner menu click the OK button, enter the user ID and password, then a menu will appear that is holiday tagline tabulation menu. If the input status item in the dialog was selected, yes, data entry will appear on the holiday tagline tabulation menu, otherwise the data list on the holiday tagline tab will appear. You select a date from the existing calendar, then the start and end date data items will be filled in immediately. If you want to change the end date because it is within a few days, then you click the calendar button on the right and select the end date, then you can fill in the day off description. For the tagline, you can click on the label on the left. It will change between the tagline and the name of the holiday. If the name holiday means what you enter is a holiday, if the tagline means what you enter is the tagline. Tagline data or holidays created from this tabulation menu for personal status that is currently active can be deleted, otherwise you cannot delete it. It must be from the relevant personal status, or if the tagline is from a schedule or assignment or deadline, then from each tablature menu you can delete it. The application will delete the tagline data if the tagline period has passed. The tagline data entry can also be through the schedule tabulation menu, or the assignment or deadline tabulation menu will be specifically explained separately in the tagline explanation. If you want to change the settings data, then you click on the schedule body, then in the dialog that appears you select the tab menu data item, and from the list on the spinner settings tab menu click OK. Then enter the user ID and password, then the settings tab menu will appear. The existing data items are mostly to change the display background of the existing tabulation menu. The final video and audio set data items function is to determine the course of a video or audio. If it is set to replay, the video or audio will play again after reaching the end of the loop, but if it is set to the end of the final video or audio, then after reaching the end of the loop it will exit to the gallery. The set transparency level data item will set the transparency of the background of all tabbed menus for the personal status you are currently running. The range of values is 10 to 255 from transparent to non-transparent. The data item set the sound of the bell can be filled by selecting from a list on the spinner consisting of start, end, both or not. Its function is on the schedule graph. If it intersects with the time runner, the buzzer sounds at the start of the activity area or the end of the activity area, or both, as long as the screen status remains on. If the status screen is not on because the OS disabled it, then the buzzer will not sound. The data item set the bell file is for the sound of the bell itself. It can also be music because what is displayed is a list of MP3s. Data items specify filter selection can be selected on the spinner for per month, per week, or per day. Its function is for every data update, where there are 3 small buttons that read the letters P equals previous, C equals current, N equals next. The spinner in each of these data items will be filtered as you set in the settings tab menu, but not for album data. The data item cancels all jobs. If it is filled with no, then all jobs will be executed as usual, but if yes, then all jobs will be cancelled. Its function is when running a reminder on the schedule tabulation menu. The data items set work start hours and set work end hours are obtained by clicking the hour button. Its function on the schedule graph will display the working hours. Data items starting hours of rest and hours of ending breaks are obtained by clicking the clock button. Its function is on the schedule graph to display rest times. Data item set category index for schedule title. This label displays the subject category, which if you select it on the schedule tab menu it will appear in the schedule title. There are 18 subject categories provided by the application, and you can still add as many as 10 subject categories according to your own choice to be displayed in the schedule title if you select the subject category in the schedule tabulation menu. If you want to add a subject category, then you click on the label with a white background and select on the spinner the subject category you want to add. Make sure that the subject category is not already on the label. If it already exists, the application will notify you that the subject category is included in the subject category and will fold the labels into a row. Click the spinner again to display the label in its entirety. If you want to add it back, then click on the label again. So every addition you have to click on the label, and if it reaches 10 additional subject categories will be rejected. If you want to delete an additional subject category, then you do a long click on the spinner, then a dialog will appear asking for the removal of the additional category subject. Select additional category subjects to be removed from the spinner. Do not click on the label. As additions are taken from the spinner, so are deletions. The data item set for automatic sign-in can be filled in yes or no. If yes, it will log in from the main menu to the internal menu without using a user ID and password. This data item cannot be filled with yes if there is no user ID for user all in the User Manager tabulation menu. You must first create this user ID on the User Manager tab menu, set the new user, then after that back to the Settings tab menu and fill in this data item with yes. Because the authority of this user ID is user level, there will be restrictions that you may experience which make you could not copy or delete file, for example, and you need to log in with the user ID whose authority is administrator. Therefore, on the main menu on the label of number of days before / after today, if you do a long click it will cancel the sign-in automatically, so you can enter a user ID and password with administrator authority. And if you do a long click again, it will continue to sign in automatically. When you fill in this data item with yes, a dialog will appear reminding you that this is not recommended, where it is better when you enter the internal menu keep using the user ID and password. The screen status data item, if you fill in yes, then the screen will stay on, otherwise it will follow the OS rules. But this you can do directly on the main menu by long clicking on the schedule body, then a dialog will appear that allows you to change the screen status to screen on or screen off. If you empty the Bluetooth parent folder data item, it will take the default folder, namely the Bluetooth folder itself, but if it is filled it will take the path you entered plus the Bluetooth folder. The download folder data item if emptied will retrieve the download folder itself, but if filled then the path will be retrieved. If sending data using social media, it is possible that the files will be spread to several folders according to the file type. For example, photo files will go to the photos folder, videos to the video folder, music to the music folder, and documents to the documents folder. And for example, the folder above is wax where the path is Android/data/wax. Then this is the path that you enter into this data item. If it is not spread out, then the path where the file is stored is entered into this data item. For scattered cases, for example like this, Android/data/wax/photo, for photo folder. Android/data/wax/video, for video folder. Android/data/wax/music, for music folder. Android/data/wax/documents, for documents folder. Then the path to be entered in this data item is Android/data/wax. This path is meant to be one level above the storage path of the scattered files. If they are not scattered, they may be merged into one folder, for example, Android/data/wax/mix. Then this path is entered into this data item. Thank you.